Welcome to another segment of High School Geometry with Netz and Weichel. This is Mrs. Netz.
And this is Mrs. Weichel.
And today we are looking at 4.1 segment constructions. What do you need to know? Well, by the end of the lesson, you will be able to perform constructions to copy and bisect line segments. Why do you need to know this? So you can recognize accepted systems and prove the accuracy of idealized constructions. How will you know it? Well, you'll know you have mastered it when you can spot unreasonable results that software has come up with because of bugs or rounding errors. So basically, we're teaching you a lot of constructions to do with your compass, and any more today with technology. Most people who work in fields that involve a compass don't usually use a compass that we're going to be a traditional compass that we're going to be using in class. Now, the reason we teach this to you is because in the event that you end up in a career field that is required for you to understand the use of a compass, typically a computer is going to do most of it for you. However, you need to be able to recognize when there has been a mistake. And the only way to do that is to understand actually how a compass works. So here we go.
All right, let's get started. So your compass, make sure before we actually go forward and use it, make sure that your pencil is sharp or the lead that's in there is sharp. When the two arms of your compass are pushed together where the pencil part is and the metal part, make sure that it is together.
So for example, on our compass on Smart, so we're going to show you a compass here, your pencil and the pin,
so right here and here,
when you put them together, when you close the compass, they should be together and they should be even.
So like if you have a compass where you're inserting a pencil, make sure the pencil is not pushed so far that the ends are different than the metal part.
Or even a pencil lead, you may need to pull the pencil lead out a little bit or put it in a little bit so it's even with the pin.
Correct. All right, so our first step, the way that you're going to do these constructions throughout this actual chapter, each box is going to build in a new step. So you're going to practice step 1 in all 3 boxes. You're going to practice step 2 in the second and third step. And then in step 3 in this particular construction is where you will do the whole thing. I ask that you don't just go through and do all of step 1 for all 3 boxes. Please try to do, like when you get to step 3, try to do the whole thing all at once so that you're actually getting a preview as to how you would do this construction in your homework. So make sure you don't just go through and get each step done at a time, because you want to practice sequentially going from one to the next, please.
So I would recommend probably just starting during the notes in the final box and doing all the steps in that final box, and then going back and doing just step 1. And then going back and then doing just step 1 and step 2 in box 2. So that way you can practice the buildup.
And then I would highlight what each step looks like.
Absolutely.
After you're done, so that you can actually get a visual as to what the words are describing. Okay, so the first step is you are going to take a straight edge and draw a line. That line needs to be clearly longer than the segment that we are asking you to copy at the top of the boxes. So you can see here I went ahead and did that. And then go ahead and put 1 dot on it. That's going to represent one of the endpoints on your segment.
And this line can be done fairly light. You don't want to do it super heavy and dark because this is just a guide.
Exactly. Everything, actually, when we're doing constructions, needs to be done in a light, very light and fine lines. The whole purpose of a construction is for preciseness. You need to be exactly right. So if you're going over with your compass and you're drawing over and over and over and over, eventually you can't see actually where you were supposed to be. Also, most of the arcs that you'll be drawing and a lot of the lines you'll be drawing are, as she just said, they're just to help reference things, to help see. It's like the work that you showed to get the answer. So the arcs that you're going to draw with your compass aren't necessarily your answer, but it's the work you used to get your answer. So please make sure you are using light, very fine lines when you're doing these, please. All right, so step 1, draw the line longer than your given segment. Step 2, after you draw this, you are with your compass you're going to measure the length of the given segment. So you can see I'm modeling that here. You're going to put the two arms, you're going to open it big enough so that each point has a part of your compass on it. So one part is going to be the metal point, the other part is going to be your pencil point. Then, without adjusting, so this is really important because you are copying and it needs to be precise. If you move your compass and this changes, now that measurement is no longer represented when you are doing your construction. So you need to start over. You're going to need to measure it again. If your compass moves very easily, then you need to take a screwdriver and tighten that thing up. It should be, you have to force it to move. It shouldn't just move free willy-nilly. So make sure you have a tightened compass. So very carefully, you're going to slide your compass over so that the metal point is on your line. That's why I wanted you to have that point there so you have a place of reference to put it. And then you're going to draw an arc. That arc is, the point of this arc is just to mark the measurement. So it doesn't need to be real long, you're just going to intersect the segment that is there. So right there, that's what the second step is. And then your final step to finalize the process, with your straight edge, you are simply going to line up, my straight edge out here for you guys. You're going to line it up like this, and you're going to connect this end to the intersection you just created. That length is an exact replica of the length you originally started with. So we want this to be darker so that you can clearly see that this is my answer. Notice everything that you can see at this point, please. You can see the answer is right here, but you can still see the reference line that is behind it, and you can still see the arc I used to find that specific location. So please make sure that you are showing that. This construction that we just did is actually pretty much going to be a part of every single construction you do from here on out where you're copying things, copying segments throughout. So please make sure that made sense. If not, ask somebody.
Yeah, it's going to take a while. Using a compass is much like learning to use chopsticks for the very first time. It's very awkward. It doesn't feel
a little
normal.
different.
Yeah, so definitely this is something you're going to have to practice often to become an expert at it.
If you don't have the ability to actually be in person with a math teacher to help you in person, I really strongly recommend looking up videos on how to hold your compass and how so that can be demonstrated for you. There are really good ways to hold a compass and some not so good ways to hold it. If you are able to meet with a math person a math teacher in person, I really strongly recommend you do that so that they can actually show you in person how you should hold a compass so that this works for you. And it's little things. Like when I use my compass, I move my paper more than I move my compass, and I'm watching Mrs. Netz do hers right next to me right now, and she moves her compass. Could be because I'm left-handed. I don't know. Maybe I do things weird.
You know, the crazy thing is it depends on what I'm constructing. Sometimes I will turn my paper, and sometimes I will turn the compass. It just really depends on what I'm constructing and kind of also what's on the table and what's in my way.
That's true. So, like she said, it's just a matter of you getting familiar with your tools and learning proper ways to hold them. All right, so you can go ahead and turn your page. Now we're going to talk about how you can construct a perpendicular bisector or how to bisect a segment. If you remember, bisect means to cut in half. So we are actually going to, you can go ahead and write this actually at the top. Bisecting a segment is the same as a perpendicular bisector, and it is the same as constructing the midpoint. So all three of those directions could be used. The construction itself would be the same.
So I have to say, this is probably one of my more favorite. I love bisecting angles and segments. I don't know why. It's stupid, but I do.
So the first step is you're going to place your compass on one endpoint and open it over half the distance of the segment. So you can see here, hopefully it's evident that the distance from my pencil to the end is clearly smaller than the space underneath my compass. So I'm clearly over halfway through the segment. you're going to draw an arc, and that arc is going to be a pretty long one. You don't need to quite go half a circle, but you want to make it a pretty decent length. So that is our first step. Our second step, without adjusting our compass. So the first step was to draw this arc. You can see it's there for me right now. That is my step 1. Step 2, I'm going to basically do the exact same thing from the other endpoint. So without adjusting, so if my compass were to change, I would need to go back and repeat step 1. It's very important. I would put this on your notes that step 1 and 2 need to be done back to back. You can't like put your compass down and go do something because the likelihood of it changing is very high. So without adjusting your compass, you're going to draw the same arc from the other endpoint. And what should happen is your two arcs should intersect. So there's 1 and there is 2. You can see that I have created 2 intersections. So there we go. And once you create those 2 intersections, that moves us on to step 3. In order to draw a line, you need 2 points. Well, I just created my 2 points. Those are the 2 points that create my perpendicular bisector. So you're going to get your straight edge out, and you're going to line it up on your perpendicular bisector, which are these 2 points.
I tell my students what you may want to do is put your pencil down on, I say where X marks the spot. So you have these 2 X's that we have created. Put your pencil down and then push your ruler up to the pencil. So that way, oftentimes what happens is when you put your ruler down first, your ruler covers where the 2 lines are intersecting. And you actually want your pen to hit where the 2 lines are intersecting.
Good. And then with that straight edge, if your pencil's down first, line it up, and then you should get a nice clean line. We're going to mark this as a perpendicular bisector, which means there are 2 things we're going to mark. 1, we know that this is a right angle, and 2, we know that this point is a midpoint. So we're going to show that it is a midpoint. All right, so that is our segments. Hopefully you feel confident in constructing 2 congruent segments, or copying 1 segment, making a second new one, and then of course bisecting a segment, or constructing a perpendicular bisector, or constructing a midpoint. If you struggled with any of this, please make sure you message us on Remind or email us. Another website that I really like that shows constructions is mathopenreference.com. I think that that's a really good website that shows a lot of different constructions. So it's a good resource for you guys to have. Yeah, so this is what Unit 4 is going to be like.
Hey, Mrs. Weichel.
Hey, what, Miss Nets?
Why was the geometry teacher not at school today?
Uh-oh, why?
She had a sprained ankle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us. We will get back at you with 4.2.